I moved to the Dominican Republic thinking that I knew what I was doing. I was in Santo Domingo, Sosua. It was just a fresh start for me. I told myself it was all planned, that I had thought it all through 100%. But if I'm going to be truly honest, I didn't. At least not in the way people think when they hear I moved abroad. At the time, it felt right. Like it felt like an escape. And that's really what nobody talks about, at least not the way that I'm going to say it. Because leaving isn't really the hard part of it all, it's what happens later on after you get used to everything and acclimated when you're already gone. I didn't think this through, not in the way I told myself I did. At the time, it felt like a plan, but looking back at it now, it was mostly just a feeling, a strong one. I guess strong enough to sound like I was sure of myself. I remember when I first got to Dominican Republic, I was paying for an Airbnb and an apartment at the same time. That should have been a sign, but I ignored it. My parents didn't want me to go. They weren't against me, they were just worried, and I knew that. I just didn't listen. I told myself it was just time, that something in my life wasn't right anymore, that I wasn't growing where I was, so I had to move. I felt empty and unappreciated, like I was doing everything I was supposed to do and still coming up empty, still coming up short. So I left, and I told myself I'd figure the rest out once I actually got there. And the excitement covered a lot. That surprised me the most. It was my first time out of the country, my first time in Dominican Republic, and the first few days didn't even feel real to me. It felt like a movie, like I had stepped into someone else's life. Everything was loud, it was brighter, the clouds looked more full, and it was slower too. The pace, the rhythm, in a way that I didn't know even existed. And I remember thinking, this is it. This is what it's supposed to feel like. And that excitement did most of the work for me at first. It filled in those gaps where I felt like I was empty or I was missing something or that there was something more. It made those questions quiet. And days passed where nothing felt wrong, not good, just fine, okay. And I didn't notice how much I didn't know yet, or at least I didn't know how unprepared I actually was. That actually came later on. I didn't crash or anything, and it wasn't like a breaking point. It was just something small, a feeling that I didn't know how to describe or name, like a kind of weight that was on my shoulders that didn't belong to any type of moment. And it would show up at random times, like me walking on the beach or on the Malecon, or just sitting down too long and just enjoying the views, or late at night when nothing was happening and it was quiet, there was no traffic. I missed my family. I missed my dad, my brother, my sister, my mom. Not in like a desperate way, but just enough to notice it. Enough to feel it, but not enough to do anything about it at the moment. But that feeling stayed and it just kept on growing. There were moments I wasn't okay. I didn't let myself admit that though right away. There were times that I had ran out of money, times that I didn't have air conditioning or a fan or furniture or lights, days where the heat didn't let up and neither did my thoughts. I had lost my work from home job and I was just trying to make money however I could. And that part felt like a weight on my shoulders because I had always wanted to be the one helping other people and sending them money and the one saying, yeah, take this, here's 40, here's $60. But instead, I was the one that was struggling. And I hated that. I didn't tell anyone how bad I felt about it. I didn't even fully tell myself. I thought struggling meant something about me, that maybe something was wrong with me. So I just kept quiet and I just kept going, kept pushing. Even when something felt missing, that was actually hard for me to explain. And I knew I should have been happy, and sometimes I was. But there was this empty space that I didn't know how to describe, and I couldn't point to it and say, yeah, that's the problem. Because it wasn't the Dominican Republic, it wasn't my family, it wasn't money because I got situated, but it was just something else that was just there. And I didn't know what to do with that. There were moments that I felt guilty for being happy, and that had surprised me too. I would be at the beach or at a restaurant or walking somewhere new or posting something online, and I'd feel like guilt underneath it. My family couldn't do what I was doing. They weren't here with me. I had felt like a bad son, like I was choosing myself in a way that felt wrong, but I was enjoying my life and they were still back home. I still feel that sometimes, like I should be there helping them more or doing more, but instead I'm here in Dominican Republic living my life, and I don't know where the line is between selfish and necessary. They know a version of me that doesn't even exist anymore. And that's weird to think about and to realize. Because before I left, my life was work, 9 to 5, cars, racing, the same routines. That person feels long gone, far away right now. Living in Dominican Republic changed me slowly, but it did change me. So whenever I go back to the States, I feel like I'm just a guest, like I'm visiting a place that I used to belong to. My family, everyone I knew, they're still doing the same things, the same routines, and I don't see them the same way anymore. Not better or worse, just different, not the same. And it's hard to explain it. I said I would go back, and I really believed that at the time. At first, it was a plan, and then it became a maybe, and then it just kept getting pushed back further out. Months passed by, then years. The decision to stay didn't feel permanent, but it started acting like it was. I come to realize that home changed without me, that life didn't just stop. My friends changed, people moved on, and I noticed it slowly through conversations, through silence. Sometimes I felt replaced, like My absence created a space that didn't wait for me. I miss things that I'll never get the chance to participate in, things that don't come back. Funerals, loss, grief, holidays, birthdays, special moments. Things that only happen once. And my parents are getting older. That sits with me too. But there's a strange feeling that I don't like to admit. And it's a feeling that I wasn't there for everything, but it's a relief that some of the weight didn't actually land on my shoulders, if that makes sense. But right after that, I feel some type of shame for feeling that way. The truth is, I don't know what I'm building toward anymore. And that question just keeps coming back up in my head. The goal used to be clear: a house, a future. But years later, my family still isn't here. My mom came once for 5 days. So I asked myself, what am I waiting for? Like, what is the big payoff? What does later actually mean? I don't even know what home means anymore. That word just doesn't even feel the same. I mean, is it where I'm from? Or is it where I am? Or is it where I'm trying to go? Sometimes it feels like none of them actually fit what the meaning of home is. But I do hope they understand. I hope they understand that I didn't leave because I didn't care or because I thought I was better. I left because something in me needed to move. And I'm still trying to understand what that something was. And I don't have an honest answer for it yet. I'm still sitting with that question.